Are you drafting a query letter in the year 2026? Well, this video is definitely for you. What's up, guys? Dave Jacobson here, best-selling author and book publisher, and I've analyzed 100 query letters, successful query letters that actually got authors' agents to find out what were the common patterns and elements that made those query letters successful. After looking at 100 different query letters, I found the secret sauce, and I'm spilling the beans in this video. If that sounds good, guys, without further ado, I'm shrinking my melon-sized head, and we're going to get right into the heart of this video. So first, as a matter of methodology, this is how I came up with the template that I'm about to share with you for a successful query letter. Okay, so this is BookFox's website, and on this website, BookFox provides 100 different successful query letters that actually got agents for the authors that wrote these query letters. Okay, so after reading through and analyzing all of these different successful query letters, I found out that there are actually common trends and a very clear pattern that makes all of these query letters successful and made them work. Okay, guys, so if that sounds like something that you definitely would find to be of value, consider watching to the end of this video, because I'm going to share with you all of the different elements. I'm going to share with you the template that I devised using this analysis and using those elements. And then finally at the end, we're going to draft a query letter for the book Harry Potter using the exact template and strategies that I'm teaching in this video. So if that sounds good, guys, let's get more into the template itself, okay? You can see here that this is a query letter worksheet that I devised. There are 9 different elements that are common to these successful query letters, okay? So I'm going to provide what those elements are in order, okay? So the first paragraph, let's start with the first paragraph of your query letter. It needs one of two things, or both. You can do one or the other, or choose both, okay? The first thing you can do is personalize your query letter. The second thing you can do is write a hook for your query letter. Now I'm going to get into detail about what this exactly means. But all of those query letters, if you read through those 100 query letters, it has one or the other of these elements, okay? So first, choose which one you want to do. First, we'll talk about personalization, okay? What does that mean? What's personalization mean? Well, it means basically you open up your query letter with a sentence that is personalized to the agent you're querying. And it basically says something like to the effect of, hey, because you represent this type of work, I thought you might want to see my work that's similar. And here are some different ways you can phrase it. Because you represent, because you mentioned wanting, because we met at a conference, because we connected through, because you liked blank, or you requested blank. And then after you say one of those things, you say, I'm excited to share with you my blank, okay? So I'm going to provide an example of this at the end of the video, and you'll see exactly what I mean, but it should be self-explanatory, right? And to draft this first sentence, you can just fill in the blanks. Because you represent, or because you like blank, I'm excited to share with you my blank, okay? The next thing is, if you don't want to personalize it, or you can do both, but you can also open with a hook, okay? Now, what is a hook? A hook, think about fishing. This is where the analogy comes from. If you're trying to catch a fish, you throw a hook out on the end of the line. And what is the hook supposed to do? It's supposed to grab the fish so you can pull them in, right? Well, that's what this sentence has to do. It has to pull in the reader, okay? So here are two questions you can think about to create a hook. What is the most intriguing thing about your premise, right? Think about that and see if there's a hook you can come up with. What sentence would make someone say, okay, I need to read the next sentence, okay? Now, let's look at an example, okay? So this is an example I took from one of those 100 successful query letters on that website. In space, no one can hear you, callando en la mierda, right? So I'm not very good at Spanish. I'm sure I butchered that pronunciation. But basically, it's a hook because, number one, you want to know what people can't do in space, right? Number two, it's like, oh, this book is about space. That's interesting. Number three, it blends English and Spanish together. So right away, you're intrigued, right? Now, this, by the way, comes from the query letter for The Chilling Effect by Valerie Valdez. Shout out to her. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to include in your query letter, either personalization or a hook in your first introductory paragraph. Again, I'm going to show you at the end. We're going to draft a letter for the book Harry Potter, and you'll see how all of this comes together. Make sure you stick around to then because you'll see how beautiful this works. So number 2, the second element you need to include for a successful query letter is the second sentence or the opening sentence of your synopsis paragraph needs to sum up your protagonist in one vivid sentence, okay? So what do I mean by that? Well, let's take a deeper dive here. So the first thing you can do is fill in this worksheet to get this information. So you want the name of your protagonist. You want the age, if relevant. You want the defining trait, a defining trait, any interesting defining trait of your protagonist. You want to know about the core flaw or problem and the main goal or desire, okay? So fill in that worksheet if you haven't already. So then you're going to draft a sentence using the information that you just put together, right? And it's going to sound something like this. Name of your protagonist, comma, a blank wants blank, right? So we're keeping this simple, right? So it would be something like, I'm David. David, a writer, wants to sell books, right? The first blank is for your defining trait. And the second blank is for the character's goal. Here's another example for you. Captain Eva Innocente and the crew of La Sirena Negra cruise the galaxy, delivering small cargo for smaller profits. Okay, so we have all of those important elements, or at least most of them. Captain Eva Innocente, that's the name of your protagonist. She's a member of the crew, right? La Sirena Negra. So that's her defining trait, right? She's been given a defining trait. And then we're also given insight into her goal, which is to get smaller profits, right? Delivering small cargo for profits. So she's a profiteer. She's part of this profiteer group, and that is the goal, right? So we've got all of those elements here in this first sentence. Moving on to element 3, guys. Again, I'm going to move fast because there's a lot we're going to get through, but feel free to pause, rewind as needed, okay? The next element that's critical, having analyzed 100 different query letters, is a sentence about your inciting incident, okay? So if you don't know what an inciting incident is, make sure you do some research on that. But basically, to get at it, you're trying to figure out what happens that knocks the story off balance? Okay, that's your inciting incident. And to get at that, if you don't know what it is for your story, just fill in these details for this worksheet. What was the status quo? What is the normal life or status quo of your protagonist at the beginning of the story? What is the event that disrupted that status quo? And why does it matter immediately? So if you can answer all those questions, you know what your inciting incident is, and you're ready to draft this next sentence, which is going to look something like this. But when blank, the name of your protagonist must blank, okay? So that's the sentence you're going to draft. And here's another example for you from the same query letter. When her sister Mary is kidnapped by the fridge, okay, that is what happened. She got kidnapped. That's the inciting incident. A shadowy agency that holds people hostage in cryostasis. Eva struggles through one unpleasant, dangerous mission after another to pay the ransom debt. Okay, so that's the third element. Again, I'm not pulling these out of thin air, guys. This is from analyzing 100 successful query letters, okay? So this stuff works. The next thing is we're going to move on to element 4. Okay, now you need a sentence that talks about how the stakes escalate, okay? What makes the problem harder to deal with? What makes it harder for your protagonist to reach their goal, okay? And you can fill in this worksheet. First major complication. New obstacle or antagonist pressure. What does the protagonist try to do, right? So once you understand those things, you're ready for drafting this next sentence. And it's going to be something like this. To make things worse, right? That's communicating to the literary agent that this is an escalation. As the protagonist tries to blank, blank happens. Again, here's an example from that same query letter. To make things worse, she's stuck with a hold full of psychic cats, a fish-faced emperor wants her dead for rejecting his advances, and her ship's sweet engineers giving her a pesky case of feelings. Que jodienda, right? So that's doing exactly what we just talked about in that particular element, okay? Moving on. Now, this element is optional. You can have a second sentence that shows how things escalate even further, okay? I'm not going to go into detail on this because it's basically a repeat of what we just talked about, but a second sentence showing things escalating even more. Let's move on to element 6. Now we have to talk about a key choice or decision that defines the story and is rooted in the protagonist's decision making, right? So you can say, what is option A? What is option B? Why both options hurt, right? And then we can draft this. Now your protagonist must choose between blank and blank. So neither option should be a good option in order to put your protagonist in sort of a crisis, right? That's what we're doing here in this sentence. Moving on to the next element. Okay, I can't wait to get to the end of this video because I want to show you how all this comes together in Harry Potter. We're going to use all this stuff to draft a query letter for Harry Potter so you can see how it all comes together, okay? So make sure you stick around in the end for that if you're interested. By the way, guys, if you're getting value out of this, please consider commenting, liking, and subscribing. It will really help out my channel, and I really appreciate it. Moving on. Element number 7, stakes. What happens if the protagonist fails? So now we are going to try to draft a sentence like this. If the protagonist fails, blank happens. And here's where we're going to try to highlight the huge stakes, right? Or the personal consequence or the relationship consequence or the larger external consequence. Like maybe the world ends if the protagonist fails, right? The higher the stakes, the better, okay? And then finally, you can also use this method. You can say, to succeed, the protagonist must blank or else risk blank. Okay, so that's how you can draft this next sentence. And then finally, we want to put in our book metadata. Okay, so keep this clean and professional. Title, age category, genre, word count, and indicate whether it's a standalone or series or has series potential. So here is an example from that same query letter. Chilling Effect, humorous science fiction that parodies pop culture and video games, is completed 115,000 words, but has series potential. Here's the sort of draft that you can utilize. Feel free to pause and use that exact template if you wish. Now we have to add our comps, okay, guys? Comps are definitely important. Not all of those 100 successful query letters had them, but a lot of them, probably most of them did, okay? Questions. What books share your tone? What book shares your audience? What books share your premise, structure, or emotional experience? If you can answer those questions, you're ready to write your comps, okay? And you can draft it this way. This book will appeal to readers of blank and blank. Or you could say, insert title, combines the blank of comp 1 with the blank of comp 2. So once you have that sentence, next you move on to your bio, okay? So only include what helps sell your project, guys. Possible material you might want to includes publication credits if you have any, relevant professional experience, a platform like a social media account if you have one that's successful, personal connection to subject, setting, or readership, and you could also mention writing organizations or programs. Here's an example for you. You can just say, I am, and then enter all that information. My fiction is published in Nightmare Magazine and She Walks in Shadows, and I am a graduate of the Viable Paradise Workshop, right? Again, that was what was used in the query letter for the chilling effect. Now, guys, let's pull all of this together and we're going to use it to draft a query letter for Harry Potter, okay? So here's what the template looks like, right? Pulling all that stuff together. Feel free to take a look at it as you like and pause the screen if you need to copy it, write down on notes or something like that. There it is, guys. There's the complete template. Now let's see what it looks like in action, okay? Read this query letter and tell me what you think. Put it in the comments. Is this a good query letter for Harry Potter? All I'm doing is using this exact template we just went to together, okay? So I'm going to read it and let's see what you think, okay? Because you represent imaginative middle grade fiction with unforgettable characters and a strong sense of wonder, I'm excited to share Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Harry Potter, an orphaned 11-year-old forced to live in a cupboard under the stairs, wants nothing more than a place where he belongs. But when a mysterious letter invites him to study at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Harry must leave the only life he has ever known and enter a world of magic. As Harry tries to navigate spells, flying lessons, and the strange fame that follows his name, he discovers that someone is searching Hogwarts for the Philosopher's Stone, a powerful object that grants immortality. Then Harry learns that the truth about his parents' deaths may be tied to the dark wizard who once tried to kill him, forcing Harry to choose between protecting himself and confronting a danger far greater than he ever imagined. If Harry fails, the wizarding world may face the return of a terrible evil. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is a middle grade fantasy complete at 77,000 words and stands alone with series potential. It will appeal to readers of fantastical school stories, magical adventures, and classic coming-of-age tales. Insert comps. I am a former teacher with a love of folklore, Latin, and children's literature, and I write stories that blend humor, magic, and the emotional truth of growing up. Thank you for your time and consideration. Best regards, J.K. Rowling. So guys, as you can see, that template definitely does the trick of helping you to draft professional, awesome query letters. I hope you found this useful and helpful. If so, please comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you next time.